Automation using robotics is still a very expensive proposition for businesses and actually out of reach for a lot of small to medium businesses. And Mostafa, with Automata, you're creating a platform that you're calling robotics as a service on your roadmap. Why is robotics as a service going to be so powerful in bringing the costs down?
Most businesses today don't use automation because it's so out of reach, both because of its price and how difficult it is to use. And robotics as a service kind of addresses both those points. On one end, once it's totally rolled out, it completely removes any capex requirements for the business. So it's completely affordable to bring in a robot in the same way you bring in a member of your team, right? A rolling monthly OPEX cost rather than capital upfront. And on the other end, because it's a service, Automata and its partners guarantee the uptime of your robot, guarantee the deployment of the robot, removing the complexity required upfront to deploy a robot. That's not to mention how simple we've made our robotic solution to deploy.
I think you're right about the simplicity point because, of course, a lot of SMEs aren't going to have the expertise to really engineer these types of solutions and maintain them on their own. So how do you target the SMEs with that type of solution?
At the moment, our robotics platforms are very well suited for a number of tasks. And we've worked over the last few years to make sure in those tasks, the robots are very easy to deploy. So for example, one of the main tasks we deploy day in and day out with our robots is something called machine tending. That is manufacturing today. There's these hyper expensive machines on the shop floor that do a very specific task. You put in a piece of metal, you get a valve out on the other side. However, you have a member of your team not doing very meaningful work, so to speak, just putting in that piece of metal and taking out the valve on the other side. And robots are very well primed to do that kind of work. And we've really simplified what it takes to deploy a robot in a machine tending operation. Once you talk to your SME customers with a like-for-like use case, much simpler to convince them to put in automation on their shop floors.
Well, you make a really interesting point about the opportunity and requirement really for SMEs to have you maintain the systems. And this is obviously a huge ongoing cost and impossible for many SMEs.
One of the main trepidations for any MD, CEO, or shop floor manager in an SME is, I have post-traumatic stress disorder with my product, right? Which is you put in a new line, 6 months later it breaks down. You have to wait for someone to come in from Germany. The whole idea of robotics as a service is you pay for uptime. It's exactly what you get for a member of your team, right? You don't pay for that member of contract staff, for example, if they're not there doing the work. It's the same thing with your robot. You're paying us for the uptime on your robot, which means us and our partners are incentivized to make sure the robot's up and running at any time you need it. Which of course puts in a whole kind of operational back end to make sure our customers can access that level of service. Like many other industries, the key here is the return on investment period, right? So yes, the traditional players have a robot that you can put in for these use cases, but you're going to pay it back over 3 to 4 years because of its price. With Automata, if you buy the product outright, you're paying it back in like 6-7 months based on our customer evidence. If you take it through a service, it's instant payback, of course.